I wanted to talk today about some of the difficulties that I've had in being a feminist, and hopefully, letting other people know out there that are feminists or thinking about, possibly identifying that way. Some things that have helped me, and one of the biggest things that's helped me over the last couple of years is learning when to pick my battles, or learning to pick my battles in general. Um, People, it's it's really difficult for a lot of people to really understand where you're coming from, especially like I've said before, if they really only watch TV and movies and that's been their experience with feminists, they're going to have a very usually convoluted idea of what feminism is. And I honestly don't think a lot of people really know what it is. Um, or they've had a bad experience with a feminist, which I've heard before. And I think it's important to remember that just because somebody agrees with an idea or says that they represent it doesn't mean that they actually understand it. And even beyond that, that they're the voice for everyone who believes in it. And I feel like a really good example of that is Westboro Baptist Church. They call themselves Christians and believe in the Bible and God and everything. But a lot of Christians feel very uncomfortable that that's the image of Christianity that a lot of people are getting. And it's the same thing in feminism. There are definitely going to be people on within every belief system that are extremists. But I think it's really important to remember that we're not all extremists. Most of us are just people who, want to be treated and represented fairly, and that's fair. That's not extreme. There are people who are going to think that you're an extremist no matter what you do. But it's one of the things that has helped me is definitely picking my battles, whether that's in person, like with a friend or a classmate. It gets really difficult at school. I'm in college right now. That can get really complicated. I'm at a junior college or community college, depending on what country you're from. We call it a community college here. I'm currently at a community college, and there's a running start program in our area where high schoolers can go and take classes, and they're paid for by the state. And that's great and everything, but 16-year-olds being in advanced class is kind of complicated and brings its problems. And it's not just them. I mean, everybody who goes to that school is, potentially somebody who you're going to run into and have problems with. In a classroom setting, it becomes extremely difficult. And I'll give you an example. I'm in an art and science degree, and so I have to study. I'm taking computer classes and things. Excuse me, I have an itch and it won't go away. But God, it's so itchy. But anyways, I have to take computer classes and a bunch of art classes and things. And there's a student that we ran into each other in one of the two required business classes and have subsequently had classes together the next 2 quarters. And the thing is that, like, he's not violent. He doesn't have he's not like trying to punch people in their faces or anything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But he definitely has some old world beliefs and is not afraid to talk about them. And the problem that I ran into him with was that I didn't say anything for a while. We sat next to each other. I didn't say anything for a while when he was kind of like making snarky comments. But once he said something, it was a rape joke. And I was just like, hey, like, can you not? and tried to approach it very calmly and very rationally, and had a very long discussion with him about why that bothers me, why it's shouldn't be okay to make those kinds of jokes, why it shouldn't be societally acceptable. And he was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense to me. And I thought that the problem had gone away, but it hadn't. As soon as he found out that I was a feminist and that these were beliefs that I had, he started bringing up things every time we talked together. And it wasn't just like, well, what do you think about this? Like, I heard about this study, or, as a dude, I feel like society has affected me this way. What do you think about that? It wasn't that kind of stuff. It was like these really shitty jokes about like making sandwiches, like the stupid, completely unwitty stuff that people still say to this day, that I'm not really sure why they say it, because it's been so used. It doesn't even take like a clever brain. But anyways, and I tried to just kind of like be like, whatever, and I didn't laugh, and I wouldn't like make faces or anything. I just didn't say anything. And this one time, we were in photo, and it's a pretty quiet class. We were in my photography class, and I think there were like 9 students or something. My teacher had left the room for a little bit of a break, and I can't even remember what he said, but it just like was my final straw. And I was just like, you need to stop making these comments around me. Like, if this is something that you really believe, then whatever. I can't do anything to change that. I'll talk to you about it if I want to, but I feel like I've talked to you about it enough over the last 3 quarters. I've known you for 25 weeks and you're still doing this stupid crap. Like, can you please stop? And everybody in the class was like, obviously on edge. It was really tense. And the thing is that I don't really care. I'm not always the most diplomatic person. I try really hard to be. But I also don't really care if people don't like me. I'm going to do my own thing regardless. But there are people who don't want to say anything or don't want to talk about it because they are afraid of the repercussions that there will be. So it's kind of just like learning what your point is. What's your breaking point? Like, how much can you tolerate before you have to say something? And even beyond that, once you've picked the battle, it's really important to stay calm and not get like really angry, because they'll try to get a rise out of you, and then they'll think that everybody who supports your cause is really emotional and can't handle like a basic discussion, and that can be not so good. And I think that that's probably where a lot of people have had bad experiences with feminists, is like where people are getting really over emotional. And it's fine. I mean, like, again, it's your own choice what you want to do and how you want to handle a situation. I try really hard to just not get like lividly upset, and it has happened, but once a guy kind of stepped over a line. But it's a little bit different on the internet. Running a feminist blog, I get a lot of crap, and it's really interesting because it tends to just sort of be the same thing. And I guess it's the same thing in person, but on the internet especially, you'll start to hear the same arguments a lot. And it's really important to know what you're talking about, and to do reading, and to watch documentaries, and do research, and read about studies and things, and make sure that your sources are good sources. Because like one of the arguments I hear a lot is, well, the wage gap isn't real, because they're taking into consideration, or they're not taking into consideration. Sorry, they're not taking into consideration the fact that more women have part-time jobs, so it makes it look like less. Well, that doesn't make a difference for an hourly wage comparison. And it's still the same when you take out part-time employees. And just recently, a study was actually done that found that female doctors are paid on average $50,000 less than male doctors, even though they're equally as qualified. And people are going to, come up with all sorts of things to say about this. Like, well, that's because women tend to work in the, like in the lower ranking jobs and all these things. Well, why? You just pointed out another problem with gender inequity, that women tend to work in the lower ranking jobs. Why do you think that is? It's obviously not because women are incompetent. So, it's really important to know what you're talking about, because people will come to you with these huge logical fallacies. There's a lot of circular logic fallacies. A lot of people who don't understand, like a straw hat fallacy, ad hominem fallacies are really big, and that's probably the easiest one to recognize. Is an ad hominem fallacy is when somebody is attacking the person instead of attacking the arguments that are being made, or are attacking a group of people. And people that are anti-feminist tend to use ad hominem logical fallacies in their arguments. They tend to attack feminism as a whole, rather than saying, well, this is my problem with this argument, this is my problem with this argument, and they don't present these as well-founded, well-researched ideas. They just attack feminism because whatever. I mean, I think it's different for everybody who's an anti-feminist, or whatever you want to call it, an MRAs. Anyways, but that's probably the thing that you're going to get the most, is ad hominem. And there are some people who will not attack you and won't attack feminism, but will try to dismantle and it'll sound like they're dismantling your argument logically. In most cases, I would say that they're probably not. I have found people that were like, well, I don't understand, like, can you explain this to me? Well, how does this make sense? Because I don't understand this piece here. And I've actually had really good discussions with people. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often, and at least on the internet. I mean, in person, usually, people will be like, well, I don't really understand, like, can you explain it? And most people in person aren't really like that, aren't really vile or, really gonna, like, attack you. It's different on the internet, and I think that's because you're, like, safe behind your screen. You don't feel like anybody can, like, really come and hold you responsible, but it's really different in person, because people are like in their face, like, not like, but like in real life, where they can see it and hear it physically, in front of them. People are sort of like snapped out of whatever, their normal goings on are. And it's really interesting. The people on the internet can be very vile and cruel. And I would say to tread lightly. Again, I don't really care what people say to me. The only reason I ever moderate comments is so that people can watch my videos and not feel threatened, or annoyed at the comments. I honestly don't usually even read them. But, what was I gonna say? Anyways, just try to pick battles, carefully, and try to understand that, especially on the internet, people will try to raise the level of discourse, by using logical fallacies and just trying to attack you. And it's really important to just keep your cool and mostly do a lot of research, do a lot of reading. That's the biggest thing that's going to help your cause, is knowing what you're talking about. Because if you know what you're talking about and you know the facts, somebody who doesn't, can't even step to you.